Many people spend their entire lives believing that power comes from speaking first, explaining everything, and making sure they are constantly seen and heard. They assume that the louder the voice, the greater the influence. Yet history repeatedly tells a different story. Some of the most respected leaders, strategists, and thinkers understood that silence is not merely the absence of words. It is a deliberate choice that reflects confidence, emotional discipline, and self-mastery. They recognize that every unnecessary explanation gives away information, every impulsive reaction reveals emotional vulnerability, and every attempt to prove oneself often diminishes true authority. Instead of chasing attention, they cultivated presence. Instead of filling every silence, they learned to let silence communicate strength. Human psychology is deeply influenced by uncertainty. When people know everything about you, they quickly become comfortable predicting your behavior. Predictability makes you easier to judge, easier to influence, and often easier to overlook. But when you choose your words carefully and reveal only what is necessary, you create an atmosphere of thoughtful restraint. This is not about becoming secretive or dishonest. It is about understanding that wisdom does not require constant expression. A person who speaks only after careful reflection naturally commands greater attention because their words carry intention rather than impulse. People begin to listen more closely because they understand that what is said has been chosen carefully. Modern society often encourages the opposite approach. Social media rewards instant opinions, immediate reactions, and endless sharing. There is subtle pressure to comment on every event, defend every decision, and broadcast every achievement. Over time, this creates the illusion that visibility is the same as value. Yet constant exposure can weaken your influence because familiarity often reduces curiosity. When people know your every move, there is little room left for imagination, respect, or anticipation. The most effective individuals understand that not every accomplishment needs an announcement. They allow their work, consistency, and character to speak before their words ever do. Silence also strengthens emotional intelligence. During moments of criticism, disagreement, or misunderstanding, the instinctive reaction is often to defend ourselves immediately. However, impulsive responses are usually driven by emotion rather than wisdom. Choosing silence, even briefly, creates space between feeling and action. In that space, you gain the ability to evaluate the situation objectively instead of reacting emotionally. This simple habit protects relationships, prevents unnecessary conflict, and allows your decisions to be guided by reason instead of temporary frustration. Emotional maturity is often revealed not by how quickly someone responds, but by how thoughtfully they choose their response. There is another powerful psychological principle hidden within silence. People naturally assign greater value to what appears measured and controlled. Someone who constantly seeks validation through excessive talking often communicates insecurity without realizing it. By contrast, a person who is comfortable with quiet moments demonstrates an inner stability that does not depend on external approval. They are not rushing to impress anyone because they are secure in their own identity. This quiet confidence influences others in subtle but profound ways. People begin to trust them not because they say the most, but because what they do say consistently reflects clarity, purpose, and integrity. Silence should never be confused with passivity or fear. It is not about avoiding difficult conversations or suppressing your authentic voice. Rather, it is the discipline of knowing when your words will create value and when they will simply add to the noise. True strength is not measured by how often you speak, but by whether your words improve the moment. Sometimes the most powerful statement is thoughtful action. Sometimes the strongest response is patient observation. And sometimes the greatest demonstration of confidence is the ability to remain calm while everyone else is desperate to be heard. Those who master this principle discover that silence is not empty. It is filled with awareness, self-control, and quiet authority that no amount of unnecessary speech can ever replace. Many people believe that time is their most valuable resource, But the truly powerful understand a deeper truth. Energy is even more precious. Every person receives the same 24 hours in a day, yet not everyone has the same capacity to think clearly, remain emotionally balanced, make wise decisions, and pursue meaningful goals. What separates extraordinary individuals from the average is often not the amount of time they possess, but the quality of mental, emotional, and physical energy they protect. Once energy is scattered across endless distractions, unnecessary conflicts, and emotional turbulence, even an entire day can feel unproductive. This is why those who achieve lasting influence become relentless guardians of their inner resources. Human psychology explains this phenomenon through the concept of cognitive load. The brain has a limited capacity for processing information. Every decision you make, every notification you answer, every pointless argument you enter, and every emotional burden you carry consumes part of that limited capacity. By the end of the day, many people are mentally exhausted not because they worked on meaningful goals, but because they allowed insignificant demands to occupy their attention. They confuse activity with progress. They mistake busyness for effectiveness. Yet being constantly occupied does not necessarily mean you are moving toward anything important. Observe people who consistently produce exceptional results. They are rarely frantic. They do not rush to respond to every message, participate in every debate, or chase every opportunity that appears before them. Instead, they make deliberate choices about where their attention goes. They understand that attention is like sunlight. When scattered, it warms many places but changes little. When concentrated, it has the power to ignite transformation. This ability to direct energy intentionally is one of the defining characteristics of disciplined individuals. Modern life constantly competes for your focus. Social media platforms, breaking news, endless emails, and the opinions of strangers create an environment where distraction feels normal. Without realizing it, many people surrender their energy to algorithms designed to capture attention rather than enrich life. Hours disappear into scrolling, comparing, reacting, and worrying about matters beyond their control. At the end of the day, they feel drained, yet they cannot clearly explain why. The exhaustion is not always physical, it is psychological. Their minds have been pulled in dozens of directions without ever settling deeply into one meaningful task. Powerful individuals recognize this invisible drain and refuse to become its victim. They create boundaries that protect their concentration. They schedule periods of uninterrupted work. They choose silence over constant stimulation. They understand that saying no to distractions is actually saying yes to excellence. Every unnecessary commitment declined becomes additional energy available for something that truly matters. Every avoided argument preserves emotional stability. Every moment of intentional rest strengthens future performance. Emotional energy deserves equal protection. Resentment, envy, chronic anger, and the need to prove oneself consume tremendous psychological resources. Carrying these emotions day after day is like attempting to climb a mountain while carrying unnecessary weight. The strongest people are not those who never experience negative emotions, but those who refuse to let those emotions dominate their lives. They practice self-awareness, regulate their reactions, and consciously release what they cannot control. In doing so, they preserve emotional strength for challenges that genuinely deserve their attention. This principle also reshapes relationships. Not every conversation nourishes your growth. Not every friendship supports your purpose. Some interactions inspire clarity, while others quietly drain enthusiasm and confidence. Wise individuals learn to recognize this difference without becoming cold or indifferent. They value meaningful connections but avoid environments where negativity becomes a permanent habit. Protecting your energy does not require rejecting people. It requires choosing relationships that encourage mutual growth, honesty, and respect. Ultimately, the quality of your life is determined less by how much time you have and more by how wisely you invest your energy within that time. A focused hour filled with purpose often produces more meaningful progress than an entire day consumed by distraction. When you learn to guard your attention, discipline your emotions, and direct your effort toward what truly matters, you unlock a level of effectiveness that others rarely achieve. This is why powerful people appear calm while others remain overwhelmed. They have mastered the invisible art of protecting their greatest resource. They know that success is not built by doing everything. It is built by giving your best energy to the few things that matter most while having the courage to let everything else quietly pass by. Many people believe that influence is created through constant exposure. They assume the more frequently they appear, the more powerful they become. Modern culture reinforces this belief every day. Social media encourages endless updates, workplaces reward constant availability, and society often measures importance by visibility rather than substance. Yet history tells a different story. The individuals who have shaped civilizations, transformed industries, or inspired generations rarely spent all of their time in the spotlight. Instead, they understood a profound psychological principle. Familiarity often reduces impact, while selective presence increases perceived value. Human beings naturally adapt to whatever they encounter repeatedly. This phenomenon, known in psychology as habituation, explains why something extraordinary can begin to feel ordinary simply because it is always present. The same principle applies to people. When someone is constantly explaining themselves, constantly sharing every opinion, and constantly seeking attention, others gradually stop paying attention. Their words lose weight, not because they have become less intelligent, but because overexposure diminishes curiosity. Mystery disappears, anticipation fades, and presence becomes predictable. Powerful individuals recognize this tendency and deliberately avoid becoming overly familiar. They understand that influence is strengthened not only by what people see, but also by what they are left wondering about. Scarcity has always carried psychological power. People naturally value what is less accessible because rarity creates significance. Think about the excitement surrounding the return of a respected leader, a celebrated artist releasing a long-awaited work, or an athlete returning after months of disciplined preparation. Their absence builds anticipation. During that time, expectations grow, curiosity increases, and attention naturally returns without being demanded. This is not manipulation. It is an understanding of human nature. When your value depends entirely on constant visibility, you become trapped in an endless cycle of proving yourself. But when your value is rooted in genuine ability, character, and meaningful contribution, you no longer need to be seen every moment to remain respected. This principle also applies to personal relationships. Many people fear stepping back because they worry others will forget them or replace them. Yet healthy relationships are not maintained through relentless availability. They are strengthened through quality interactions, mutual respect, and emotional balance. Constant accessibility can unintentionally reduce appreciation because people begin expecting your time and energy without recognizing their value. Establishing healthy distance allows others to recognize your presence as a gift rather than an entitlement. It creates space for respect to grow naturally instead of being forced through constant effort. There is another important psychological reason why powerful people limit their visibility. Uninterrupted focus requires privacy. Every moment spent maintaining appearances is a moment not invested in developing competence. Great thinkers, entrepreneurs, writers, scientists, athletes, and creators often disappear during their most productive periods. They retreat from unnecessary noise because meaningful work demands concentration. Creativity flourishes in environments free from constant interruption. Deep thinking cannot coexist with endless distraction. By reducing public visibility, they create mental space where ideas mature, skills deepen, and long-term strategies take shape. Their silence is not inactivity, it is preparation. Modern society often confuses activity with progress. Someone who constantly posts achievements may appear successful, while another person working quietly behind the scenes may seem invisible. Yet appearances rarely reveal reality. Many remarkable accomplishments are built during seasons when almost no one is watching. The business is developed before the launch. The book is written before publication. The skill is mastered before the performance. The transformation begins long before the audience notices the results. Those who understand this are comfortable allowing their efforts to remain unseen because they trust that genuine excellence eventually becomes impossible to hide. Perhaps the greatest advantage of selective visibility is the freedom it creates within the mind. When you no longer feel obligated to respond to every opinion, participate in every discussion, or seek approval from every audience, your decisions become guided by principles instead of pressure. You begin living according to purpose rather than performance. Your confidence comes from internal standards rather than external applause. This shift represents true psychological maturity. It allows you to protect your energy, strengthen your focus, and develop a calm confidence that does not depend on constant recognition. Ultimately, powerful people do not disappear because they wish to escape the world. They disappear because they understand that growth often requires distance from distraction. They know that influence is not measured by how often you are seen, but by the depth of your character, the quality of your contributions, and the lasting impact of your actions. When they return, they do not need louder voices or greater publicity. Their preparation speaks through their wisdom, their discipline, and the quiet confidence that only time and intentional effort can produce. True influence has never belonged to those who chase attention. It belongs to those who become so valuable that their presence is felt even during their absence. Solitude has always been misunderstood. Many people confuse it with loneliness, isolation, or withdrawal from society. Yet some of history's greatest thinkers, innovators, strategists, and leaders deliberately sought periods of solitude, not because they disliked people, but because they understood that the human mind requires silence to reach its highest potential. In a world overflowing with constant conversations, endless notifications, and the pressure to always be available, solitude has become one of the rarest forms of wealth. It is within these quiet moments that a person begins to hear thoughts that were previously drowned out by the noise of daily life. Instead of reacting to the expectations of others, they start asking deeper questions about who they are, what truly matters, and where they are going. This shift from external influence to internal reflection is one of the most powerful psychological transitions a human being can experience. The human brain was never designed to operate under endless distraction. Every notification, opinion, argument, and demand competes for your attention, slowly fragmenting your ability to think deeply. Cognitive psychology suggests that uninterrupted reflection allows the brain to organize information more effectively, connect distant ideas, and improve problem-solving abilities. When your mind is constantly occupied with reacting, it has little opportunity to create. Solitude provides the mental space where scattered experiences become meaningful lessons. It transforms confusion into understanding and emotional chaos into calm reasoning. This is why many breakthroughs occur during quiet walks, moments of meditation, or periods of intentional withdrawal rather than during busy schedules filled with endless activity. There is also a profound emotional benefit to solitude. Many people spend so much time responding to the emotions of others that they lose touch with their own inner world. They become experts at reading everyone else's expectations while remaining strangers to themselves. Solitude interrupts this cycle. It allows you to observe your emotions without immediately acting upon them. Instead of suppressing anger, fear, disappointment, or excitement, you begin to understand where these emotions originate. This practice strengthens emotional intelligence because awareness always comes before control. You cannot master emotions you refuse to examine. During quiet reflection, patterns begin to emerge. You recognize recurring fears, unhealthy habits, limiting beliefs, and automatic reactions that previously operated unnoticed. This awareness becomes the first step toward lasting personal transformation. Powerful individuals understand that every important decision deserves distance from emotional noise. They know that clarity rarely arrives in the middle of chaos. Rather than making impulsive choices driven by temporary feelings, they create moments of separation where logic and wisdom can regain influence. Strategic solitude helps distinguish between urgency and importance. It reveals whether your goals genuinely belong to you or whether they have been unconsciously borrowed from society's expectations. Many people spend years climbing ladders only to realize they were leaning against the wrong wall. Solitude reduces this risk by creating opportunities to regularly evaluate your direction before investing more time and energy into it. Another overlooked advantage of solitude is its ability to strengthen independence. People who cannot spend time alone often become emotionally dependent on constant validation. They seek reassurance through approval, compliments, or continuous interaction because silence feels uncomfortable. Yet that discomfort often reveals an important psychological truth. If you cannot enjoy your own company, external relationships become attempts to escape yourself rather than opportunities to genuinely connect with others. Solitude teaches self-reliance. It builds the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your value does not disappear simply because nobody is watching. Instead of measuring yourself through external applause, you begin developing internal standards based on character, discipline, and integrity. History repeatedly demonstrates that preparation happens in private before achievement becomes public. Writers spend countless unseen hours refining ideas before publishing a masterpiece. Athletes endure lonely training sessions long before standing on championship podiums. Entrepreneurs wrestle with uncertainty, setbacks, and repeated failures behind closed doors before others recognize their success. Their greatest advantage was not extraordinary talent alone, but their willingness to embrace long periods of focused solitude while the world looked elsewhere. They understood that growth is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. Perhaps the greatest gift solitude offers is perspective. When you temporarily step away from the constant flow of opinions, comparisons, and expectations, you begin seeing life through a clearer lens. Problems that once seemed overwhelming become manageable. Conflicts lose their emotional intensity. Goals become more defined. Priorities naturally reorganize themselves. You stop chasing every opportunity simply because it exists and start pursuing only those aligned with your deeper purpose. This clarity creates a calm confidence that cannot be manufactured through motivation alone. It is earned through honest conversations with yourself. Ultimately, solitude is not an escape from the world. It is preparation to engage with it more wisely. It is where discipline replaces distraction, self-awareness replaces confusion, and purpose replaces impulse. The people who consistently make thoughtful decisions, remain emotionally grounded under pressure, and lead with quiet confidence are rarely those who spend every moment surrounded by noise. They are often the ones who understand the transformative power of stepping away, reflecting deeply, and returning stronger than before. In a culture that constantly demands your attention, choosing moments of intentional solitude is not an act of withdrawal. It is an investment in becoming the clearest, strongest, and most authentic version of yourself. Many people believe that strength is measured by how intensely someone expresses emotion. They admire dramatic reactions, passionate outbursts, and immediate responses because they appear authentic. Yet psychology teaches a different lesson. Emotional discipline is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of feeling. The most influential people in history were rarely those who reacted to every insult, every disappointment, or every victory. Instead, they developed the remarkable ability to pause between emotion and action. That pause became the birthplace of wisdom. It allowed them to choose responses that served their long-term purpose rather than their temporary emotional state. This is one of the greatest forms of power a human being can possess. Human emotions are incredibly valuable because they provide information. Fear warns us of potential danger. Anger reveals perceived injustice. Sadness encourages reflection and healing. Joy reminds us of what truly matters. However, emotions were never designed to become permanent commanders of our decisions. They are signals, not instructions. When people fail to recognize this distinction, they become prisoners of their own emotional impulses. A single moment of frustration can destroy years of trust. One impulsive decision made in anger can permanently alter relationships, careers, and opportunities. Emotional maturity begins when you understand that feeling something deeply does not automatically mean you should act on it immediately. Powerful individuals cultivate what psychologists often call emotional regulation. This is the ability to experience emotions fully without allowing them to dictate behavior. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is fierce, the rain is relentless, and everything around you feels chaotic. Most people run in every direction, trying to escape the discomfort, but the emotionally disciplined person remains grounded. They acknowledge the storm without becoming the storm. Their calm does not come from having an easier life. It comes from building an inner stability that circumstances cannot easily shake. This kind of self-control is not natural for most people. It is developed through repeated practice, self-awareness, and conscious reflection. One of the greatest misunderstandings about discipline is that it limits freedom. In reality, discipline creates freedom. When you cannot control your emotions control your future. Your mood determines your productivity, your anger determines your relationships, your anxiety determines your opportunities. But when you learn to regulate your inner world, you reclaim the ability to make choices based on principles rather than impulses. You begin responding with intention instead of reacting out of habit. This subtle transformation changes every area of life because consistent wisdom always outperforms inconsistent passion. Modern life constantly challenges emotional discipline. Social media encourages instant reactions. News cycles reward outrage. Online discussions often celebrate those who respond the fastest rather than those who think the deepest. People are pressured to comment immediately, defend themselves instantly, and prove their worth continuously. Yet many of the wisest individuals choose silence before speech. They understand that not every opinion requires a response, and not every criticism deserves emotional investment. Their restraint is not weakness, it is strategic intelligence. They recognize that preserving inner peace is often more valuable than winning temporary arguments. Another important aspect of emotional discipline is separating identity from circumstance. Too many people define themselves by today's success or today's failure. When they succeed, they become arrogant. When they fail, they lose confidence. Emotionally disciplined people avoid these extremes. They understand that neither victory nor defeat defines their identity. Success becomes an opportunity to remain humble and continue learning. Failure becomes valuable feedback instead of a permanent label. This balanced perspective protects them from emotional instability and allows them to remain focused on continuous growth rather than temporary outcomes. Perhaps the greatest reward of emotional discipline is the quiet confidence it builds over time. Confidence is often mistaken for loudness, dominance, or certainty, but genuine confidence grows from repeatedly proving to yourself that you can remain composed under pressure. Every difficult conversation handled with patience, every criticism received without defensiveness, every disappointment faced without surrender becomes evidence that your character is stronger than your circumstances. Eventually, people begin trusting you because your behavior becomes predictable even when life is unpredictable. They know that your decisions are guided by wisdom instead of emotional turbulence. This kind of stability inspires respect, strengthens relationships, and creates lasting influence. In the end, true power is not found in controlling other people. It is found in mastering yourself. The individual who can govern their emotions with patience, clarity, and purpose possesses a strength that no external circumstance can easily take away. Every meaningful transformation in life begins long before anyone else can see it. This is one of the most overlooked psychological realities of human growth. We often admire the confident speaker, the accomplished entrepreneur, the disciplined athlete, or the influential leader, but we rarely witness the countless hours they spent improving themselves in complete obscurity. Human nature is attracted to visible success because results are easy to celebrate, yet the invisible process behind those results is where true greatness is formed. Like a seed buried beneath the soil, personal development requires time, patience, and conditions that may appear unremarkable from the outside. No one praises the seed while it is hidden underground, but without that unseen period of growth, no tree could ever reach toward the sky. The same principle applies to your own life. The strongest version of yourself is not created during moments of recognition, but during seasons when no one is watching. Modern society constantly encourages people to broadcast every achievement, every idea, and every step of their journey. Social media has created the illusion that progress only matters if it is publicly acknowledged. This mindset quietly shifts our attention away from genuine improvement and toward external validation. Instead of asking, "Am I becoming wiser, stronger, and more disciplined?" many begin asking, "Do people notice me?" This subtle change has profound psychological consequences. When your motivation depends on applause, your consistency disappears the moment the applause stops. But when your motivation comes from within, from a commitment to your own standards, you become resilient regardless of who is paying attention. Powerful individuals understand this distinction. They willingly enter periods of invisibility because they know that private growth creates public excellence. They are not interested in looking successful today if it prevents them from becoming truly capable tomorrow. There is another reason these hidden seasons are so valuable. They remove the pressure of performance. When no audience is watching, you are free to experiment, fail, learn, and improve without fear of judgment. Psychologists have long recognized that mastery develops through deliberate practice, repeated correction, and consistent effort rather than instant perfection. Mistakes become teachers instead of embarrassments. Weaknesses become opportunities instead of sources of shame. During these quiet periods, you develop something far more valuable than skill. You develop character. Character is built every time you choose discipline over comfort, patience over impulse, and long-term purpose over immediate gratification. These decisions may seem insignificant in the moment, but together they reshape your identity. Eventually, discipline stops feeling like something you force yourself to do and becomes part of who you are. History repeatedly demonstrates that every remarkable achievement is preceded by a period of preparation that most people never witness. Great authors spend years refining ideas before publishing a single masterpiece. Scientists conduct countless failed experiments before making discoveries that change the world. Athletes train relentlessly through exhaustion long before they stand on the podium. Musicians practice thousands of hours before performing effortlessly before an audience. None of these individuals become extraordinary because they seek attention. They become extraordinary because they are willing to invest in growth without immediate reward. Their willingness to remain unseen while improving is precisely what allows them to stand out when the moment finally arrives. The world often celebrates the performance while forgetting the preparation, but those who understand success know that preparation is the true source of excellence. These hidden seasons also strengthen emotional independence. When you are no longer chasing constant approval, you begin making decisions based on principles instead of popularity. You stop comparing your timeline with everyone else's because you recognize that every meaningful journey unfolds at its own pace. Comparison loses its power when your attention is focused on your own development. You become less distracted by other people's opinions because your confidence comes from the evidence of your own daily effort. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens self-trust. Every difficult task you complete despite resistance reinforces resilience. Over time, this internal confidence becomes unshakable because it is built on experience rather than compliments. No criticism can easily destroy what consistent discipline has patiently constructed. Perhaps the greatest lesson hidden within these seasons of invisibility is patience. Nature never rushes its masterpieces. Mountains are shaped over centuries. Diamonds form under immense pressure. Trees spend years deepening their roots before reaching their full height. Likewise, wisdom, emotional intelligence, and lasting success cannot be rushed. They require repetition, reflection, setbacks, and perseverance. Powerful people understand that becoming is always more important than appearing. They do not fear being temporarily overlooked because they know that true value eventually reveals itself through actions, competence, and character. When they finally emerge from their season of quiet preparation, people often describe them as an overnight success. Yet only they know the truth that their greatest victories were built one unseen decision, one disciplined habit, and one silent day at a time. The world may only notice the bloom, but the roots that made it possible were strengthened in complete silence. Many people believe that greatness is built by saying yes to every opportunity, every request, and every relationship. They fear that if they decline an invitation, refuse a favor, or step away from a commitment, they will appear selfish or unkind. But the reality is far more complex. Every time you say yes to something that does not align with your purpose, you are quietly saying no to something that truly matters. Time is limited, but even more valuable than time is your attention, emotional energy, and mental clarity. Powerful people understand that these resources are finite. They cannot be recovered once wasted, which is why they guard them with extraordinary discipline. They do not build walls to shut people out. They build boundaries to protect what is most valuable within themselves. Human psychology often pushes us toward people-pleasing because acceptance has always been connected to survival. Our ancestors depended on belonging to a group, and traces of that instinct remain deeply embedded in our minds. As a result, many individuals sacrifice their own priorities simply to avoid disappointing others. They answer messages immediately, attend events they have no interest in, tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict, and accept responsibilities that leave them exhausted. Over time, this pattern creates emotional fatigue, resentment, and a growing sense that life is being lived according to everyone else's expectations instead of one's own values. Those who achieve lasting influence recognize this trap early. They understand that every unnecessary obligation fragments their focus. A distracted mind cannot think deeply, create meaningfully, or make wise decisions. This is why they become intentional about where their energy goes. They are selective with conversations, careful with commitments, and thoughtful about the people they allow into their inner circle. They know that constant accessibility often weakens productivity because every interruption pulls the mind away from what truly deserves attention. Boundaries are not signs of arrogance or indifference, they are expressions of self-respect. When you establish healthy limits, you communicate something important, not through words, but through consistent behavior. You quietly tell the world that your purpose deserves protection, your peace deserves respect, and your time has value. Interestingly, people often admire those who honor their own limits because confidence naturally grows from self-discipline. Those who constantly seek approval may gain temporary acceptance, but those who consistently respect themselves earn lasting respect from others. This principle also applies to emotional boundaries. Powerful individuals do not absorb every criticism or carry every person's emotional burden. They listen without becoming consumed. They care without losing themselves. They understand that empathy does not require emotional surrender. Instead of reacting impulsively to negativity, they pause, reflect, and choose responses that align with wisdom rather than emotion. This emotional steadiness preserves inner peace and strengthens resilience during difficult moments. History repeatedly shows that remarkable achievements rarely come from lives filled with endless obligations. They emerge from focused attention directed toward meaningful goals. Every inventor, strategist, artist, philosopher, and visionary had to protect long periods of uninterrupted thought. They had to decline distractions that others considered harmless. Their greatest accomplishments were possible because they understood a timeless truth. Excellence requires concentration, and concentration requires boundaries. There is another subtle psychological effect of healthy boundaries. They reveal the true nature of relationships. When you stop constantly accommodating everyone, some people may disappear because they valued your availability more than your well-being. Others, however, will respect your decisions and appreciate your honesty. This natural filtering process strengthens your relationships because it replaces obligation with mutual respect. Genuine connections survive healthy boundaries. Superficial ones often do not. Ultimately, boundaries are not about keeping people away. They are about keeping your purpose alive. They allow you to protect your energy from unnecessary conflict, your mind from endless distraction, and your heart from emotional exhaustion. They create the quiet space where discipline grows, wisdom develops, and meaningful work becomes possible. The most powerful people are rarely those who try to satisfy everyone around them. They are the ones who understand that every meaningful life is built through intentional choices, clear priorities, and the courage to say no when yes would cost them the future they are trying to create. There are moments in life when stepping away is not a sign of weakness, but one of the greatest demonstrations of wisdom. Most people believe that progress is measured by constant activity, endless visibility, and the ability to always remain present in every conversation, every opportunity, and every conflict. Yet some of the most influential individuals throughout history have understood a truth that many overlook. Meaningful transformation often begins the moment you willingly disappear from unnecessary noise. This disappearance is not about escaping responsibility or isolating yourself from the world. It is about creating enough distance from distraction to reconnect with purpose. Human beings naturally become trapped in routines of constant reaction. Every notification demands attention. Every opinion invites a response. Every criticism feels like something that must be defended. Over time, this endless cycle quietly consumes mental energy until a person is no longer directing their life but merely reacting to it. The psychologically mature individual recognizes this danger and understands that temporary absence can become the foundation for lasting strength. One of the most important principles in psychology is delayed gratification, the willingness to sacrifice immediate comfort, recognition, or approval in exchange for greater long-term rewards. This ability separates those who merely seek attention from those who build genuine influence. Modern society encourages people to display every achievement before it has fully developed. Success is often measured by visibility rather than substance, yet true mastery follows the opposite path. A musician spends thousands of unseen hours practicing before performing on stage. A writer quietly fills countless pages before publishing a masterpiece. An athlete disappears into disciplined training long before standing on a podium. Their greatest improvements happen when nobody is watching. They understand that the world only celebrates the final performance, while ignoring the years of invisible preparation that made it possible. Strategic withdrawal also creates emotional clarity. When you remove yourself from constant stimulation, your mind begins to settle. Thoughts that were once buried beneath endless distractions become easier to examine. You start recognizing which ambitions genuinely belong to you and which were unconsciously adopted from social pressure. Many people spend years chasing goals they never truly wanted simply because they were surrounded by expectations that drowned out their own inner voice. Solitude interrupts this pattern. It creates an environment where self-awareness can grow. Instead of asking, "How can I impress others?" you begin asking, "What kind of person do I truly want to become?" That single shift in perspective changes the direction of an entire life. Absence also reveals the true nature of relationships. Human psychology often becomes clearer when constant availability disappears. Some individuals value you only when you continually provide attention, approval, or convenience. Others remain loyal even when your focus temporarily shifts toward personal growth. By stepping back, you gain valuable insight into who respects your boundaries and who only values your presence when it benefits them. This is not about testing people or creating emotional distance out of suspicion. It is about recognizing that healthy relationships survive temporary absence because they are built on mutual respect rather than constant validation. In many cases, silence exposes truths that endless conversation never could. Another powerful benefit of intentional disappearance is the restoration of cognitive energy. The human brain has limited attention, yet modern life constantly competes for it. Endless scrolling, unnecessary debates, and continuous comparison gradually exhaust the mind. Neuroscientists have long observed that sustained focus requires periods of recovery. Without those periods, decision-making declines, creativity weakens, and emotional regulation becomes more difficult. Powerful individuals protect their attention with the same seriousness that others protect money. They know that every unnecessary distraction quietly steals from the quality of their future decisions. By withdrawing from noise, they preserve the mental resources needed to solve meaningful problems and pursue significant goals. Perhaps the greatest lesson hidden within strategic disappearance is that identity becomes stronger when it is no longer dependent on external applause. Many people unknowingly build their confidence on recognition from others. They feel valuable only when they receive compliments, admiration, or constant acknowledgement. This creates a fragile sense of self because it depends entirely on circumstances beyond their control. However, periods of quiet growth replace external validation with internal evidence. Every promise you keep to yourself, every disciplined habit you maintain, and every difficult challenge you overcome without anyone noticing becomes proof that your worth does not require an audience. Confidence developed this way is calm, stable, and remarkably resilient because it comes from character rather than popularity. History repeatedly reminds us that the greatest transformations often happen in silence. Before remarkable achievements become visible, invisible foundations must first be established. Just as roots strengthen beneath the surface before a tree reaches toward the sky, human character develops long before success becomes obvious to the world. When powerful people disappear, they are rarely running away. They are refining their thinking, strengthening their discipline, expanding their knowledge, and preparing themselves for responsibilities greater than the ones they currently hold. When they eventually return, they do not need to announce that they have changed. Their decisions become wiser, their presence becomes calmer, their actions become more deliberate. Others notice the difference without being told. That is the quiet paradox of real power. The most meaningful growth often takes place where nobody is looking, and by the time the world finally sees the results, the transformation has already become irreversible.